Hi everyone, this is Adrian.
And I'm Carrie.
And for this episode, we are going to talk about, is it too little or too much? And we're talking about if you use too little perfume or too much perfume, depending on the perfume you're using.
Or the situation.
Or yeah, definitely the situation. The situation will tell you a lot. So you don't want to get caught in that, wasted investment or social embarrassment. Don't want to get either of the two.
Right.
So after you.
Okay. So one of the things we usually talk about is whether a fragrance lasts a long time and whether it projects. So in this episode, one of the things we're going to talk about is projection. Some fragrances, a little goes a long way. Mm-hmm. And in some fragrances, the whole bottle still doesn't do it. We've talked about one of those in particular several times, and that one will be featured today. But what this is about is trying to gauge a fragrance. When you get a new fragrance, trying to gauge how much to put on for what situation. Some things you really do have to put on several sprays to get it to perform so that, other people can smell you. If you don't really care if other people smell you, if it's just for you and you want to just sniff your hand every once in a while, put on as much as it takes. But if you're going to the office, you're going to a party, you're going to something social and you want people to notice you, this is something that takes a little bit of practice. And we'll talk about a couple ideas of how to do that we've come up with. And then we'll talk about some fragrances that are good examples of underperformers and overperformers.
Oh yeah, and we definitely have those at either spectrum. We're going to talk about both spectrums and, what's good and what's too much.
Right.
You want to be always on the right amount of use, just the right amount to make that impression that's positive, because you either make no impression or negative impression. So
Yeah.
You want to be on the right impression.
And the idea is to be noticed in a positive sort of a way, not necessarily to put people off. So why don't you talk about a recent thing that happened to you where you felt like maybe I put on too much?
Okay, so let's start with like a fragrance that I would say is an overperformer. And the reason that I end up taking too much of this fragrance, it's called Promise, because prior to this, I was using Red in Style by Polo. And that was a summer fragrance, and I was used to spraying twice, 3 times on the same spot just to get a good amount projection. Well, with this one, at first I sprayed 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like, And then I came back again and said 1, 2, 3, 4. And well, I don't want to make a long story out of it. One of the people who lives with us, basically, he got choked up. So anyway, it left a negative impression on him. And the positive takeaway is that I could have embarrassed myself over many people, and they're just being polite but distant. And you don't want that situation, especially with this particular fragrance, because this fragrance is expensive and it's a high investment, and then you end up with a bad experience, and you don't want that ever.
Right. And one of the things I think that's important to mention to viewers is this was really one of the first times in a social setting that you were wearing this. Before that, it was an occasional spray here or there, just more or less because you liked the fragrance and you wanted to smell it, but you hadn't worn it as part of a fragrance wardrobe to go out and to...
No. And of course, the last thing I want is people backing off.
Right.
When you want them to hug you and say, wow, you smell good.
Right. And instead they're keep your distance. I can hardly breathe.
Yeah. So social embarrassment. You don't want that.
Yeah. So it's probably not a good idea with a fragrance for the first time to put on a lot of sprays and not know how it's going to project to other people. It'd be good to try it and then have somebody you trust kind of give you their opinion on how it's doing. Is it too much? Is it,
Tell us the story about your friend of yours and his anosmia and this particular bottle, this very popular fragrance. Tell them about that.
So this is a great example. Sauvage, this is the original formulation, the EDT that everybody talks about. And this one people go crazy with. And I love it, but it certainly is probably overworn by most people. So a lot of people are kind of like, oh, it's, everybody uses that one.
One thing about this fragrance is it's easy to get anosmia from it. And tell us what happened to your friend and what happened to his boyfriend. Remember that time that he fumigated his boyfriend out of his apartment because he kept spraying it on himself? He couldn't get enough because he wasn't smelling it anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, some fragrances, when you first put them on, you smell them, and then half an hour later you can't smell it, but everybody else can. This is a good example of one where people go nose blind or anosmia. It has ambroxan, bergamot, pepper, lavender, and cedar, all beautiful notes, and it really is a great fragrance. But when you put this on about a half an hour later, you probably aren't really noticing how much it's projecting. You'll have to depend on other people to tell you how it's doing.
Or you end up fumigating them out.
Or, you end up choking them out.
Well, fumigation ends up happening to this person because he's basically about to get out of the apartment because he kept spraying the bottle.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just talk about a handful of ones that are too little and then some that are easily too much. Okay. So one of the first ones that I promised I would bring back is our favorite one to complain about that doesn't perform, Tom Ford Oud Wood. Now, do we like this one?
Yes.
We love it.
We love it. It's very beautiful fragrance. It's just that the problem is you have to use the whole bottle just to get noticed.
Yeah. I mean, to be realistic, if you use like 4 or 6 sprays of this, nobody will notice. You literally have to use like 16 or so sprays. And then even later, by 4 hours, it's gone. And this little 50 ml bottle is well into the 200s. And it's just really sad when something that's that pricey and beautiful is such a poor performer. So this one has oud, cardamom, sandalwood, tonka, and vanilla. And it is a really nicely blended and beautiful cologne, but its performance is really terrible. So you can never get enough of this. You just have to keep spraying it and spraying it and spraying it. And it's not that you go anosmic on it, it just fades very quickly. There is a Oud Wood Intense version, which apparently lasts for a little while, but you have to pay extra for the Intense version if you want it to last any time. This one, apparently you're just supposed to spray it and then it only lasts for like 2 hours. So on to another one that we have talked about before. And do we like this one?
Yeah,
we do.
Also beautiful, aquatic, gentle to the nose.
It's really very pleasing. Acqua di Gio, it's got sea notes, lime, jasmine, musk, and cedar. And it's a beautiful, beautiful scent. But how long does it last?
Almost the same as Oud Wood.
Within half an hour or so, it's really hard to smell it unless you really overspray it.
But it's very beautiful.
Fortunately, the price is more reasonable, so you can overspray it. The problem is just, I always feel if I'm doing like 16 or so sprays of a cologne to get it to last for 4 to 6 hours, I just feel like there's something wrong with that.
That's you. Me, if I can afford it, I'll just keep
Blast
spraying,
away.
blast away. Actually, have it on my backpack
There you
go
go.
somewhere and just
Have a little purse-sized spray for whenever you need to whip it out.
yeah.
Now another one, we haven't talked about this one on our videos before. It'll be up and coming maybe next year during the warm weather. Dolce & Gabbana, light blue, Oh Intense. Now there's a whole lot of light blue flankers, and this is one of them. And this one is really nice. You haven't tried this one, I don't think.
No, but I'm sure it's going to be very pleasing because the Forever version is.
Right. This one actually reminds me a lot of the Acqua di Gio, but with a few little changes of the notes. This one also has seawater, but it has grapefruit, juniper, musk, and amber. It's a very nice smell. It really smells a lot like being by a nice smelling part of the ocean and smelling those other nice scents in the air. But oh my goodness, an hour and it's gone. And price point is good enough that you can keep respraying it, or you can really overspray it.
Put it in your bag.
Yeah. But I would say this is going to be one for some, like where you're on vacation and you're near the water a lot and you don't want to clash with, being by the water. That's another thing to think about when fragrances clash, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming video.
Okay.
So another one that we've talked about before, and we
Very
like,
gentle.
yeah. This one is by Guerlain. It's the Aqua Allegorica collection, and this one is Mandarin Basilic. This one has clementine, bitter orange, basil, mandarin, and sandalwood. Although I would have to say that the sandalwood is only noticeable after you've really oversprayed it and after a couple hours or so. It is very citrusy. It's really pretty. I mean, it's a great scent.
A lot of beautiful scents, sadly, don't have high performance.
Yeah,
You know?
a lot of the citrus, the summer ones, which is what we've been doing a lot of talking about, they don't perform, they don't last that long.
But it's safe to wear when you're going to the gym.
Yeah, or when you're going to outdoor sorts of things and you spritz yourself a little bit so that you're pleasantly noticeable. It's just you have to...
When it evaporates on your skin because it's warm and stuff like that.
And one thing worth noting is that these perform a little bit differently when you're outdoors or when you're kind of warmed up, like in a sporty situation where your body heat or the ambient heat kind of makes it press off of you. But it still doesn't really last all that long.
Nope.
And then moving on to final one, and the ones that we're going to talk about the ones that are poor performers, or the ones that you can...
This isn't too much of a poor performer. Actually, it's stronger than the previous one, the Mandarin Basilic.
But it's still, it's like...
there of like, I mean, you will smell the soda, the orange soda kind of like, we call it after, kind of like part of the base notes and stuff like that. But it doesn't last too long either. But compared to all the ones that we talked about so far, this would be the strongest.
Yeah. This is the Acqua di Parma Blue Mediterranean Arancia de Capri. It's a special line in the Acqua di Parmas that are all kind of tropical, fruity, summer-oriented. This one has orange, mandarin, lemon, petitgrain, and musk. And beautiful, beautiful combination. Perfect for like vacation-y, outdoor type situations.
Caribbean.
Yeah,
Hawaii.
Beautiful thing to take with you when you're going to be by the pool, out by the beach or whatever, so that you smell good and noticeable if somebody's up close to you, but you don't smell like some kind of like really clashing sort of a scent with the situation.
Yeah.
But this one's nice. And how long would you say it lasts?
Better than Mandarin Basilic.
Yeah.
It's gonna last a little longer because of the orange soda. I think when they talked about soda, was it some kind of musk?
It does have musk, yeah.
Yeah,
and
so that
helps
kinda
preserve some of the...
Which is kind of give it the soda,
Yeah. Yeah, it feels sort of like fluffy or fizzy in your nose and stuff.
Yeah.
And that lasts for a while. It keeps some of the orange citrusy notes going for a little while. But the initial fruity blast is sort of gone within a couple hours. It does last longer than the Mandarin Basilica, though, I have to give it that.
Yeah.
Now, Now we're going to step into the territory of the ones where you have to be careful because these can really choke people out.
Okay.
And a thing that I have to say here is sometimes you're used to wearing these in a certain situation where you would probably put on a little too much. Let's just say I'm going to go to work and I sit, a good distance away from other people and stuff. And so
Sometimes
I want
a
them.
cubicle is not enough. When you
Yeah.
put too much of this, you might fumigate your entire office.
Right. The thing is with these is to ask somebody, can you smell the cologne that I have on? And if they say, yeah, I smelled it from like clear over there, then clearly you're
Put
putting
too
on a
much.
little too much on it.
And
Now-
no matter how beautiful the fragrance, too much is too much.
Yeah. And so you have to watch the situation. And like I'll mention one of these, which I dearly love. I love this fragrance. And I probably overspray it a little bit because after a little while, I don't smell it. But I sort of learned when I was on an airplane the other day, I thought I would put on just one or two little spritzes of it. And it really was kind of small because I was using a decanted atomizer and it sprayed a small amount. But I really was self-conscious that I could smell it really strong. And I thought, oh, I hope I'm not choking other people out. And this is in an airplane where you're in close quarters with people and stuff.
Ooh.
So definitely be careful of situations that you're in where you don't know how your strong performer is going to be. So we've already talked about Sauvage. Be careful of using too much of this and hosing yourself down with it because you don't smell it. Other people smell it. Trust me. The Ambroxan really keeps pushing this, but your nose goes blind of it in maybe half an hour or so. So trust other people more than you trust your own nose. This is another popular clubbing type of a scent, Versace Eros. This is actually the EDP version of it, not the original Eau de Toilette. And so it's tamed down a little bit compared to the original kind of clubbing version of it. It has mint, candy apple, lemon, Ambroxan, and patchouli. But let me just say, the Ambroxan really keeps pushing this and it comes across strong. So be careful of wearing this in a situation like, say, going to the gym or something where it's going to be pretty warm weather because this stuff keeps pushing and pushing the smell and you can really choke people out if you don't watch it. But if you're going to a party or something, it gets you noticed because people can smell you coming.
Great performer.
Yes. Now this one, notice this says replica. This is not a knockoff. This is the actual, the line of fragrances replica by Maison Margiela. They make a line of fragrances that the smell is supposed to give you an impression of something. This one is called By the Fireplace. And it has vanilla, chestnut, guaiac wood, cloves, and juniper. And it's supposed to remind you of like a kind of a wintry time sitting by the fireplace, maybe smelling roast chestnuts and other things you would smell in the wintertime. A few sprays of this goes a long way. I've seen people really overdo this with about 8 or 10 sprays.
No.
Let me just tell you, they're going to be the only one even near the fireplace because this will seriously fill the room. And people they don't know that they've put it on because after 30 minutes, they can't smell it. So then, once again, we come back to Promise that we talked about. This one is a really nice one by Dominique Ropion is the perfumer, and this is a Frederic Malle. This one has rosemary, apple, 2 kinds of roses, patchouli, and labdanum, which is a sort of a incense-heavy sort of a smell. This one, a little bit, goes a long way, and it lasts a long time.
Yes, it has a very big scent cloud.
Right.
So be very wary of that.
Right.
As beautiful as this is, that's why I said, like, you can knock someone out with this.
Yeah.
And be careful.
Yeah.
But the great part is 3 sprays, probably enough.
Yeah.
And last you for the day.
Yeah. If you're going to go to the office and wear something like this, 3 or 4 sprays will probably do you the whole day.
And actually, you need the time to commute for it to just die down.
Right.
You know, so that it doesn't really, because beginning, like the beginning 30 minutes, you will get noticed.
Yeah.
Really, it's actually announcing you.
Yeah, but it has a nice sort of a linear sort of a context to it, where even though at first there is sort of a bigness to the smell and stuff, most of the elements of the fragrance stay put and they're still noticeable there. But definitely the rose and the patchouli and somewhat the rosemary actually stay pretty prominent. So be careful of the situations that you're in when you have a fragrance like this that's complex and rich and long lasting.
And not everyone is a fan.
Yeah.
Just letting you know, it's like everyone's noses are different,
Right.
and someone will just tell you it's not their favorite scent, and
Right.
don't take it personally.
Right. There are some fragrances that are really easy to pull off, and you'll hear people refer to those as like a, you know, an easy pick or a like a dumb grab or something, that like if you're on your way out the door and you're like, oh, what do I wear? Oh, well, it's easy. Just put on some Sauvage. You know, it may not make you smell very different, but it's nice. This is one that you would have to probably decide on the situation. It's very sophisticated. It's got a great blend of things, but it's not a common type of a scent, and it probably isn't something you want to just put on as you dash out the door.
And
think about the situation.
definitely, we will talk more about this fragrance. And let's go to the last fragrance.
The last fragrance in the Powerful line is one from Tom Ford. Now,
Again,
if you guys thought I hated Tom Ford, you're wrong. I love Tom Ford. But Tom Ford has some pretty, pretty divisive scents and stuff. Some of them are a little hard to pull off. Some of them are sort of overpowering. Some of them are a little underpowering. This is one that I dearly love, and this might have been the one that I was using on the airplane and probably should have thought better about. It's very strong and incensey at first, and it lasts for a long time.
probably sticks to your clothes too.
It does. I've actually sprayed it on when I've had a sweater on, and I can still smell it the next day. And not from across the room, but when I pick up the sweater and I'm close to it, I can smell it. This one is a beautiful scent, I think. Not perfect for every occasion. It's certainly not one that you can just wear in any sort of a setting. And
Not an office.
probably not so much in the office. It's more of a sophisticated occasion type
And we'll
of
definitely
thing.
talk about this fragrance on a separate video.
Right.
You know?
And so this one has incense, Palo Santo, resin, ebony, and leather. So you can tell by those notes, they're all going to be kind of strong, distinctive sorts of smells. And they're all very well blended in this. This is one I truly love and treasure, and I hope that they don't stop making it pretty soon. Tom Ford sometimes discontinues things without any notice, and they're often the ones that are a little more niche oriented and stuff that some people adore and other people just don't gravitate towards. So that ends it for the ones that we have for too little or too much. And I think we should just kind of wrap up by saying, when you buy something new, especially if it's a little on the heavy side of performance, try it out maybe at home and have somebody else, give you some feedback on how it performs.
Before you show up to a crowd.
Right. Maybe try like going out and, having a person sit in the car, and then you get in the car and sit there for a minute and see, it's like, is that too much? And if they tell you, yeah, I can barely breathe, then you put on too much.
Yeah.
So.
Well, anyway, till next episode. Take care, guys.
Bye.